what's up, Marvelites, and welcome to a brand new episode of the MCU Exchange podcast. This is episode 24. Yay! My name is Aaron.
Woo!
I'm your host for this episode. Alongside me is Charles
What's up?
and Joe.
Hello.
Hey, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to all our listeners over at Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and our new platform, Apple Podcasts. Hello. And also, please do like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/DMCUExchange. You can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/MCUExchange. You can also visit us on our website, of course, it's www.mcuexchange.com for all the latest news that we are going to talk about right now. Let's get right to it. First up on the news list for our rundown is something Miss Marvel news here. A new release from Murphy's Multiverse has detailed imminent plans for the upcoming Disney Plus miniseries Miss Marvel to resume the earliest stages of its production. The casting process has resumed to find the series' leading actress, and filming could possibly commence as early as the end of summer 2020, as the state of Georgia begins to open up and allow film projects to recommence. Definitely exciting news, guys. Charles, for those unaware, like for those that's um, I know Miss Marvel is a big character in the comics. How do you think her role? What do you think is how big is her role in the upcoming Phase 4 of the MCU?
It's gonna be hard to say to sort of predict that because we don't know what Phase 4 even is gonna be about. In the
Hmm.
first place, we know it's gonna be sort of about the multiverse. We don't know how Kamala fits into that because for the most part in the comics, her stories have been very personal. It's really more of her growth and sort of finding her place in her own world. It's not about saving the multiverse or something big. So I mean, there's gonna be a big push for Kamala Khan. She's gonna be sort of the start of this upcoming Avengers game, and
Yeah.
now this show. So there's definitely gonna be a lot of visibility for the character moving forward. Just in
Mm.
general, as for her specific role and how she's gonna be a key player in the future, then I don't really know. But just hearing this news that they've returned to casting the character. It means things are getting back for them. Hopefully, they announced that big DC thing. We got a Zack Snyder trailer this week. So if
Mm.
Marvel wants to make a big splash with how quiet it is, maybe they could announce who the next Kamala Khan is within the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting news. DC has been really releasing a lot of big news lately, and I hope Marvel catch up or something like announce something. Joe,
Mm.
how about you? How excited are you for the resuming of production of Miss Marvel, also as well as the how Miss Marvel will play out in the future of the MCU?
I'm very excited. I don't have much experience with Miss Marvel as a character, but I kind of like the concept of it because it is a very unique take on a legacy character. Because until now, like even in the MCU, our only true legacy character is Ant-Man, who pretty much stole the suit per se, and this is someone really being inspired by a character to become it. And I think Miss Marvel is a great, even though Peter Parker is technically our teenage superhero, this will give us a different look at that smaller base of characters or that smaller world. Because Spider-Man still kind of got roped into very large stories. So with the Disney Plus series, we have the potential of doing something smaller, something more personal, which I think is exciting. I think also for just in general for representation, for adding a diversity to the cast, it's a nice touch, and I think it was a great choice of character because she is quite popular right now, and I hope it introduces us to some great new actors in the roles that otherwise were overlooked.
Very interesting point, and you touch upon the aspect of diversity, and the
Mm.
Marvel Cinematic Universe is growing with diversity now because of Miss Marvel, Shang-Chi. It's very interesting moving forward.
And I think
Yeah.
it's a good representation of just because like this feels like they're branching outside of the US because a lot of even if they were like superheroes world going around the world, they were still very US based heroes. And I like the fact that like with Shang-Chi we're exploring other parts of the world a bit more closer than just being action sequences like in Age of Ultron where we went to Korea, we had a sequence there, we had a sequence there, but like the focus is a bit more outside of the US, which I think is great.
Yeah, and they're expanding worldwide in terms of not just the characters, also
Mm.
the location.
Yeah.
And before we move to the next news, at the top of your head, guys, which character are you excited to interact? Which or Miss Marvel do you want to interact the most moving forward. Joe, how about you first? Any character from the MCU.
So, so who interacts with her? Uh, I think the obvious. I kind of want to see her interact with Spider-Man. I think because they
Uh,
do share a lot about this more down to earth local hero. And also just Spider-Man doesn't really have anyone his age with powers.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really have anyone to share that with. He mostly has seniors that he looks up to. So it's kind of great to see these, and I think that's also probably a segue into what I think the potential of Young Avengers is to just have these teenagers with very different problems from adults, trying to live their lives, trying to find out who they are, while also having the challenge of they're superheroes. What are they as heroes? Something that the Spider-Man films I think explored brilliantly.
And they will share a
Chat,
very
stop
interesting
trying to get on my
dynamic.
laptop.
They will share a very interesting dynamic because they're street level heroes, right? Even though they have
Yeah.
amazing powers. How about you, Charles? Which character in the MCU do you want Miss Marvel to interact the most?
yeah, I'm also with Joe that Spider-Man seems like, at least right now, the most sort of appealing sort of pairing with Kamala, because yeah, Joe is absolutely right that Peter Parker doesn't necessarily have anyone his age to relate to. Everyone is sort of older than him. Everyone sort of acts like an older brother or an uncle or an aunt
Mm.
towards him. So it's gonna be super fun to see someone his age finally doing what he does, struggling with the same sort of identity problems that Peter Parker has struggled
Mm-hmm.
with, and it's gonna be just fun to see these two kids get along. Possibly, I mean, obviously, it's gonna be Kamala's relationship with Carol Danvers is gonna be super huge. So that's also something worth looking forward to. But yeah, Spider-Man is what I'm sort of betting on.
Very interesting choices, guys. And I'm very sure our listeners are going to look forward to those future interactions with our MCU heroes. Moving on to the next
Mm.
news here, we have a very interesting character debut that might appear soon in the MCU. Charles Murphy via Murphy's Multiverse has brought attention to a recent casting call put out by frequent Marvel Studios casting director Sarah Howe Finn for an upcoming Disney Plus show. The call is looking for deaf actresses who are Native American, First Nations, Indigenous, or Latinx, and also independent, athletic, and bright to play a character in their 20s. And in that article, Murphy speculates that Marvel could be looking to bring in the character of Maya Lopez, aka Echo, which is Daredevil character, right? Echo.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah.
given that it's going to be in a Disney Plus show, my question would be, Joe, for you, is what show should this character debut, and how excited are you for a character like Echo finally appearing in the MCU?
Um, Good question. What show? Uh, I could see this character showing up in the She-Hulk show.
Mm,
I think it'd be a good connection because She-Hulk with the lawyer aspect also has a connection to Daredevil, and I don't think they're not gonna. I hope they don't underplay her connection that she has with Daredevil technically. So the question is, what of a role is it going to be? Is it going to be a slow introduction of the character, like roll that out? The interesting thing is it's another young teenager character. So are they trying to ease in characters through like is this going to be connected to Young Avengers? If she'll show up in that as like a Daredevil representative? At this rate, I'm going to say they're really stockpiling a lot of potential members for the Young Avengers series
yeah.
that's been rumored for quite some time. And that would I think it's an interesting aspect because you can kind of ease people into what would a Daredevil be in the MCU without retreading old ground.
Yeah.
Maybe she already has a connection with Daredevil. Maybe there's a mention of him. I still think it would be fantastic if we get a cameo of whoever's going to become Daredevil in the She-Hulk show as like an attorney that she goes up against or someone she works with. And I think this is also a great way to kind of ease people into, oh yeah, Daredevil is part of the MCU now. The Netflix shows are something completely separate.
Charles, how about you?
Like as a huge Daredevil fan, one of the first comics I got into starring Daredevil was the one that introduced Echo. So
Hmm.
I'd like to think that I'm very familiar with the character. She is sometime in the comics after she appeared in Daredevil. She was the first character to don the Ronin uh, outfit. There was a big twist in the New Avengers run where
Really?
the Avengers were in
True.
Japan. Someone in the Ronin costume was sort of escorting them. They didn't know who he was, and of course, sometime later, Ronin unmasks and she's a girl, and she's actually Echo. People are saying that, oh shit, because of that Ronin connection, then it must make sense for her to appear in Hawkeye as Ronin now that Clint
Mm,
is um uh back to being Hawkeye. The
Hmm.
thing with that though, it's just for the optics alone. Um, I I don't know if you guys were aware of the 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 small controversy surrounding Clint's character in Endgame. He was just basically a minority
yeah.
killer. He killed cartel guys. He killed yakuzas, and it wasn't that big of an issue. But I definitely saw a lot of people bring that up. And looking back now, a year later, thinking about what was Clint up to during this whole gap? And yeah, it is fucking crazy to think, holy shit, he was fucking killing minorities left and right. I'm not sure if the right thing to do with this Native American character, a minority herself, I'm not sure the right thing to do is maybe dress her up in that Ronin costume, considering what that Ronin costume was doing in Endgame. But the idea that Kate Bishop might have might have maybe a rival who's sort of her age. She's got
Mm.
Maya Lopez has a
Mm,
handicap. She's deaf and whatnot. That seems very very interesting to me. I'd like to see sort of maybe Clint has another protege in training where, like I said, Maya Lopez
oh
has a
yeah.
rivalry with her. It could bring up such very interesting dynamic possibilities with how the show turns out. Also, Maya Lopez was a main character in one of the later Moon Knight runs when Brian Michael Bendis was writing the character. Maya Lopez was the main character in that story.
Hmm.
So because they're doing Moon Knight now, that could be also for that because maybe she could be like a crossover character. Maybe she appears in Hawkeye and then
Yeah.
transfers on
Yeah.
to Moon Knight, something like that. But
Hmm.
overall, just the idea of getting this character, I'm such a huge fan of her. She's a ninja. She's Native American. She's got all these abilities and skills. She's deaf, but she's a master at reading lips and whatnot, and just sort of spotting what the fuck's going on. She's got a good peripheral sort of sense, and it's super exciting to see what could happen with
Mm,
this character.
Very interesting. She might be that connecting thread between the Disney Plus shows, and the very interesting point there is that what makes Hawkeye Disney Plus series a more complex show because you have this two mentoring Clint mentoring two characters, and that there's a conflict
Uh,
there. That's an interesting dynamic.
wasn't also in the comic that's the inspiration his apartment in New York City?
yeah, yeah,
Because that could be an interesting connection. So if he passes on, she trains under him, she passes on, but she doesn't get the like to become the next Hawkeye, but runs into someone else in New York City.
that's cool. Yeah,
There's a
Yeah,
train to be an archer, and then it's like, you know what, I like this guy more.
yeah, that sounds
and,
cool. Yeah,
and there's going to be a very it's all connected. Twitter hashtag will run again if that's the case.
finally,
Or
it'll
yeah,
finally be true.
yeah, it's going to finally be true. Very interesting points, guys. And now let's move on to the last news on our rundown. Just recently, yesterday, it was reported that in a new release from MCU Cosmic, Marvel Studios has been in contact with director Deborah Chow from The Mandalorian about a number of potential projects in the MCU's near future. There are no reports pointing to any specific projects in these discussions. And as you all know, Chow has most recently directed 2 episodes in the first season of The Mandalorian Disney Plus. Also, she's
Mm.
set to be the showrunner of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series in Disney Plus. Charles, Deborah Chow, she has that. She already has an experience with Jessica Jones, Iron Fist. How excited are
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
So, how excited are you with her potentially joining the MCU? And what project do you want her to direct? Or
Ooh. Well, I am very excited with the idea of
Mm.
her joining because what she did with the Mandalorian episode was very sick. I mean, the show in general was a
yeah,
very good, but
Mm.
the episodes she did were one of the more eye-catching episodes. So that's super exciting. I am curious how um, Obi-Wan is gonna turn out with all the stuff that's been going on with it. It's been delayed. It almost didn't happen. It was supposed to be a movie and whatnot, but now it's a show. So I am
yeah,
curious how that show is gonna turn out in general. But you know, she did an amazing job with Mandalorian. she, as far as I remember, her Jessica Jones episodes were pretty good. I think she was attached since the first season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, first
So
season.
she's part of the Marvel family. It's always good to have some familiar faces manning the camera. But yeah,
Mm,
so super exciting. As for what particular project, I'd like to see her do a movie more than anything.
yeah,
Maybe
Yeah.
shit, I don't know. Maybe she can do fucking Blade, just so it's interesting. Get someone like her to do Blade. She does great action well and whatnot. So yeah, off the top of my head, I kind of want to see Deborah Chow do Blade.
Blade. Interesting. Joe, how about you? What projects do you want her to see take on the MCU?
I think one like the one answer everyone gives is that there's a potential for her being behind Captain Marvel too,
Yeah, that's the latest
which
reports.
Yeah.
it makes sense with her. She now with the Mandalorian, she has experience with space oriented stories, and I think she's a great action director and has a great I mean, she's did some fantastic episodes. She did American Gods. She was involved with Mr. Robot, so she has quite the repertoire behind her. And especially with the Mandalorian, like you said, Charles, she made some great episodes. And I think that I I want to see her do films. I think that's like the next step for her to
Mhm.
really go out there because give her more money, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a beautifully done and well written movie on our hands. I'm unsure if it is Captain Marvel too. It just seems like the let's say the obvious answer given with the Mandalorian. They said they want to get a female director for this one, so it makes sense. But at the same time, I think I kind of like her way of directing and using camera shots to also mislead you. She would be a good choice for a Secret Invasion Disney Plus show, or if it's a film, for example. So there's a lot of potential with her, and I'm really glad to see that she's in talks, and I'm very curious because it says various projects.
Yeah,
So maybe it's not the only time we see her direct, and I wonder if they're going to start having directors like James Gunn once wanted to direct the Thunderbolts film. So once he's finished with Guardians of the Galaxy, if he does that, which kind of would be hilarious considering he's doing Suicide Squad as well.
oh my god,
So
yeah,
maybe we'll see directors have multiple projects, a Disney Plus show and a film. And I think that's a quite an interesting prospect.
yeah. And I've seen so many tweets about it. You can see many exchanges
Mm.
between the fans over Twitter, over at Facebook, and it's the most likely that she will direct, according to them, is Captain Marvel. But the problem is, Captain Marvel 2 comes out at 2022, which is the same time that the Kenobi series is coming out. So there's that scheduling conflict there. So aside from that,
Yeah.
yeah, aside from that, maybe Blade, like Charles said, maybe an Eternal
Mm.
sequel down the line, maybe, or like you said, Joe, I love that where you pointed out that Secret Invasion is also in the mix. If we're taking into account the various projects bit about that news, and there's this past rumors about Captain Marvel 2 is heavily influencing the events of Avengers 5, maybe those two movies somehow maybe might be directed by her, or I don't know, or
Mm.
other Disney Plus shows, because it goes under the umbrella of various projects with those
Yeah.
two closely tied together. Well, whatever the case, we're just excited that Deborah Chow is finally coming to the MCU, and and we're all for it if she will take any project. You know, but there are a lot of projects here for the MCU moving forward here in Phase 4 and also Phase 5. So, Deborah Chow, welcome to the Marvel family. I mean, she's already in the Marvel family. You're just welcoming into the larger MCU. Yeah, and that's about wrap it up for all the news for the rundown. If you want to check that out, you can check out www.mcexchange.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/mcexchange. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Now let's move on to my favorite segment of the show, where we talk about the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the black and white noir episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Joe, this is a fantastic episode.
Oh, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely
Uh,
up there in my top five.
I have to say I love the fact that not only was it a great tribute to those old style noir films,
Yeah,
but at the same time they literally give an explanation why Coulson is monologuing and why everything is black and white. That was such a great touch.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that genre per se, but
Hmm.
I was actually hooked from the first frame up to the last one. I was at the edge of my seat, trying to figure out how can they save both Daniel Sosa and history at the same time. So
Uh,
it's
Funny
a
enough,
very
sorry, my theory was correct from last time.
yeah. Your theory is correct. I was about to point that out that your theory of Sosa finally joining the Shield team, and I'm excited to how will that play out in the next couple of episodes. Also, to the MCU timeline, because technically they
Hmm.
didn't change anything, on the surface. They only changed it from within, and it's going to be very interesting. And I recall your theory last week that we might see him in present day, maybe on 2012's The Avengers. Who knows? We don't know. So
It's a really cool twist because I thought it was like why get because I think he's a great actor and I hope
yeah,
we get to
same.
see him in many more projects. And it was just like they're not just gonna. It felt like as soon as they said, "Oh, he was found dead," there's a cliche. So the cliche is always is that the in a noir film that when someone dies or shot, like for a more artistic
Hmm.
thing, they're in a pool. Even Archer made fun of that entire storyline.
Yeah.
And now they pretty much did the exact same scenario, but there's the trope of the person in the pool not actually being the person who died, and then that
Hmm.
kind of like put together. And I love the fact that like Coulson, while narrating, is like, oh, the advantage of being a robot is that you don't feel you can take two bullets in the back. He just
I love that he
floats
pointed
in
that
there
out.
with his eyes open, huh?
I love that he pointed that out, in the
Yeah.
narration. Not it's like a fourth walling to the audience. Hey, I'm an LMD. I can't die.
It's just like I love the fact that he's not like closed eyes in the pool, but they show the pool with him in it, and he's just like staring down, like, "Can I get out now?" Shouldn't he be actually hit the floor because he's heavy as a hell? If he's a
Yes.
robot, how the hell is he floating? That's the only thing I couldn't get out of my head when
Maybe,
watching it.
maybe I think that he has an ability to change his weight or something, to change his
Mm.
density or something. Maybe he has that,
The
or I don't know.
the
He's just
vision
very good at
theory.
floating.
You know what I just realized? The fact that
Mm.
this season that Coulson is an LMD is actually also the return of the original Coulson is Vision theory.
Oh yeah,
I
very
just
interesting.
realized it.
Like
Yeah.
before Avengers: Age of Ultron, that maybe Agent Coulson will become Vision at the end of the series, at the end of the season finale, and then well, it got debunked, but it's now well, Vision is dead in the current MCU timeline, but we have an LMD Coulson who is alive, running through time. So put two
Yeah.
and two together, and maybe I don't know. I'm not saying he's Vision, but he's an android, sort of alien
It's
android.
kind of a tribute to it.
Yeah, kind of a tribute to that running theory. Let's break this down. Let's break this episode down.
Hmm.
Okay, here we go. Um, there's still 9:55. There's still
Yeah.
9:55. It's classic black and white. 95% of the episode is black and white up until the last few minutes. And Clark Gregg is amazing in this episode. When I was watching it,
Yeah.
I was reminded of that episode, my favorite episode, Agents of Shield, back in season one, that train, that Stanley cameo.
Yeah.
It's right up there. The misdirections, the plot twists, the
Mm,
unexpected tributes, the unexpected callbacks. It's all there, and
yeah.
I love it. It perfectly captured the essence of it being a Shield show, a spy espionage show.
I as much as I love that they've been tapping into the comic origins, let's say,
Yeah.
the Agents of Shield show hasn't really been a agent show in a while. And it's great because this reminded me how good they are if you give them free reins on making a mystery. And they really tapped into that this episode. And I agree with you. Like those were some of the best episodes when they have these twists and turns that really showcase these people even though they're very quirky, they're at a dark space. They're still agents. They're still spies that know how to do their jobs, and it was just great to see them
Yeah.
return to that in a tribute to noir films.
Even if their backs are against the walls, they know how to get out of it because they've
Yeah.
been there. They've been there all the time. And the interesting thing here, Joe, is that it's the final season. So I know
Mhm.
it was shot a year back, but the writers, the directors, the cast, are now taking risks every episode. The fun bit about a time travel show like that, like Agents of Shield,
Mm.
because I'm also a fan of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, where they time travel. They have a different theme
Oh
every
yeah.
week, and the fun bit about it being a time travel episode, a time travel series, time travel filled season, is that for every episode you get to do a bunch of crazy stuff. A bunch of crazy
Yeah.
stuff in a way that there's a different theme, there's a different callback, there are different Easter eggs that you can make fun of, you can reference to, and that's the fun thing about this season because every week you are surprised, you are
Mm.
caught off guard by all of this, and their way of storytelling has blown up. Like it's perfectly good, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of sad. Like uh, after last season, I kind of thought to myself, you know what? I think that Agents of Shield. It's good that it's ending. As much as I love the show, I had a hard time getting through the last few episodes in last season. Not that it wasn't interesting. It was just the main draw wasn't quite there. I think the last season really felt like a setup for this season. That was the whole point, like
Yeah.
going through the motions so we can get into this season. And you see that like this season they knew it was their final season. They're going all out. And at the same time now that we have the season, I'm like I want a show that's just this. I want a show that's them going through time, through history. Like this season's about the history of S.H.I.E.L.D. Next season's the history of the Starks or something like that because you can do a lot with that concept
Yeah.
because they're really reinventing the wheel every episode using tropes of the era, talking about very modern topics. Even though this was filmed a year ago, it just shows how these topics are extremely relevant to this day. And it's a blast to watch. And for me, the one thing that the show also reignites is I don't want Clark Gregg to ever leave the MCU. He wants to probably do other projects, but Agent Coulson is just such a fun character. I'm sad to think that this may be the last time we see him again.
Yeah, he's been a major staple, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, may it be in movies or TV. And when when he showed up in Captain Marvel last year, I was
Mm,
excited to see him. I was excited to see him on a big screen, like seeing him there at last after 7 years. You know, it's
so
a
young.
it's a great feeling. So okay, so the basic premise of the episode is about saving Daniel Sousa, right? And
Yeah.
stopping him from delivering a very important package to Howard Stark, which is a great reference, Howard Stark. So, so there. So the dilemma is, trying to save him, trying to save history. But the thing is that package he's trying to deliver, they didn't really focus on that. They just focus on the
Yeah.
outside. Like I don't know what that is. It looks like an important device, right? Like I caught
Yeah.
a glimpse of
It
it.
looked like a metal stick.
Yeah, like a metal stick. But it kind of rings a bell to me when I saw it. I think I've seen some of that in the earlier seasons. I just couldn't put my ringing into it. I couldn't figure it out. But I hope it will be addressed. Maybe sometime in the future.
After this episode, because the one thing that bothered me about this time travel is the question of how they're going to pull it all together. That was like the
Yeah.
biggest mystery to me.
Uh huh.
And the fact that after our first time jump, they
Mm.
instantly brought back Malik, that was a great touch.
Yeah.
Because not only do we see Malik, who was kind of like the older version, I think we've seen this actor as Malik in a flashback in an older season as well, which is a
Mm-hmm.
great reference. But at the same time, it showcases that okay, this season is not just mini adventures.
Yeah.
Everything they do ripples, not waves. And now we see the first wave, like him seeing someone from the past, and he instantly knew that guy was a time traveler. Let him go. At the same time, though, I kind of am fascinated that the alien race, the Chronicoms, didn't just do what they did at the post credit sequence here from the beginning, because it seems like
Yeah.
the easier way to
Four
do it.
episodes. Next point is we finally know what happened to May, Agent May. So it turns out
Yeah,
that she feels the emotion of anyone that she touches. That's weird.
she's an empath. Yeah, she
Yeah.
pretty much is a Mantis character now.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, they kind of look alike.
Oh.
So, n- um, what do you think is the larger implications of this? Like, is that going to be just the power, or is it going to be further utilized in some way in future episodes?
So I think the moment where she touches Coulson is probably the setup for something.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's throughout the season she's going to constantly touch Coulson to feel emotions that he's there, because right now she is kind of avoiding him.
Mm-hmm.
My theory is that probably as Coulson, the longer he is as an LMD, the more he becomes his own conscious, or becomes Coulson as a character.
Yeah.
If they're going to play on that trope, probably in the 90s, because that's the perfect time to play around with robots. I could see like that being the moment where she realizes this is him. He may be different. He may not be exactly the same, but this is Coulson, and feel the emotions. I'm not sure like what they're going to do. Like, it's a strange. On one side, it's a cool idea, because May is always like the sturdy, no emotion kind of type character, and now she's a complete empath, which is strange for her. And I love the
Really
whole
strange.
I don't feel emotions. You showing emotions is strange. But I
Yeah.
kind of want to see, like, imagine if she can like transfer those emotions, and she punches the hell out of a guy, and just like he's just getting all angry and depressed because she keeps passing on that empathy with him while beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, and she's transferring the emotions to the Chronicomps. Maybe, right?
Actually, yeah, that's an interesting theory. That maybe that's the way they get them to change what they're doing. Because right now they're going by logic, or their own logic. So if they have to feel emotions, I see the seer, or that future teller that we saw from the Chronicoms. I think her and May are gonna probably share a moment in this season.
After 7 seasons, May is still the big gun, the cavalry.
Yeah, the cavalry. Great reference too.
Yeah. And the biggest moment of this week, we're going to talk about it now. Daniel Sousa finally joining the team, the Shield team, and it could have larger implications moving forward, because uh, him knowing about the future of Shield, being part of future adventures, the Chronicoms being aware of what's happening. It's going to be uh, all the weapons are now laid out. Like it's going to be a massive time war now. What do you think about that?
So was Sousa pretty much dying in his time but living on with the team? Is, first of all, I love the idea. I think it's so great that we find, after how long is this the first addition to the team outside of Deke? And so we have someone from the future, and so we have someone from the future and someone from the past, which is just hilarious.
Interesting.
And I think what is a good thing is, so I think they don't know Sousa is with the team. I think he's like the one factor they would not expect. Yeah. Because they go by history. So they probably believe, okay, Daniel Sousa's dead. The Hydra did what they were supposed to do, but they didn't get the object. Mm-hmm. And with that, I believe that he might be the key alongside May to kind of change fate, let's say. And I do believe that he will meet Agent Carter in the future. They will have a moment.
I think so too. Even though Haley Atwell recently denied her appearance to the season 7, I think that Haley Atwell will appear as Peggy Carter, maybe in the season finale.
Even if they reuse footage, I kind of think it would be cute if they reproduce the Endgame scene with Captain America, where he's just staring at her like, oh. One thing I do have to say, I really didn't. I expected them to at least talk about the opening cliffhanger from the original Agent Carter, but they're completely ignoring that.
Yeah, they're just
so my theory.
Throwaway lines.
Sorry. Yeah. So my theory is that pretty much with Sousa knowing that Hydra's around, that they're trying to make that connection. That I think Thompson was his name. That he was killed through Hydra, and that was pretty much the setup they're going with, and they don't have to go back to that.
So next week is going to be an exciting 70s themed episode. You saw that preview, Joe? Where that Enoch says,
I loved it.
Come inside if you want to continue to exist.
I hope they go for full-on pulpy 70s. I really hope they do. The music already is a good tease. And I kind of want to see all these characters, especially Sousa, who grew up in an era where everyone wore like the most like suits all the time. They have to wear whatever it becomes. I cannot wait for his comments on what the future's like. And also, let's say Coulson. I hope Coulson gets an afro just because the idea sounds hilarious right now.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that you pointed out is Sousa adjusting to different timelines. That's going to be I think a side note for every episode, right? Like, so this is the 70s, so this is the 80s, this is the 90s, this is the 2000s. Oh, this is weird. Like Sousa adjusting to every time that they were in.
I mean, the good thing is, unlike Captain America, he's not thrust into as far as possible. So there's at least some connection. But the poor guy cannot adjust to any timeline because he's constantly going by about 20 years while also sitting in an airplane that looks like it's from 13,000s.
Yeah. And I just want to point out the very interesting jumping off periods of timelines that they are trying to portray here. So first two episodes, 1930s, and then 1950s, and then 1970s. So 20 years is the gap. So possibly that after the 70s, they will go forward to the 1990s. And as we all know, in the 1990s, it's a big year because Captain Marvel arrived on Earth in 1990s timeline. S.H.I.E.L.D. is booming, and our tech, there are more tech that has been being developed, and it's gonna be exciting, And Hank Pym is there, Carter is there, Howard Stark is there, so we might see them.
Yeah, will Coulson meet his younger self?
Yeah, and will the team meet some of their younger self, like kid version, maybe?
Will Goose finally show up?
Oh yeah, maybe they found a way.
The cheapest cameo you can make: put a cat in a room.
Yeah, put any cat in a room. Right there. Unknowingly, that cat is an alien, so.
I still would love to see. I think that'd be a fun idea, especially with 90s, with the alien connection, that they're kind of trapped in a house that belongs to Fury because they're trying to get something and they're trying to run away from the monster cat that's trying to devour them.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun episode.
With the 90s, they can also delve on that Kree connection,
True, yeah.
Yeah, they can finally explore that after 7 seasons. So very exciting points, very exciting episodes. We have this episode 4, we have 9 episodes left, and it's going to be a race to the end, literally, for saving humanity and the timeline. So folks, if you have more points if you want us to talk about more about the S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, some news that you want us to talk about, please do tweet us at twitter.com/MCUExchange. You can also like us on Facebook, facebook.com/the MCUExchange. For all of our reviews, for all of the news, for our podcast, you can go straight to our website at www.mcuexchange.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/AaronChino. That's AeronChino. You can also follow Joe on Twitter.
Hello, I'm going to be at that Albel, THATABERL, and I can't spell.
Yeah. You can also follow our buddy Charles from Twitter.
You can follow me on Twitter at CFS Villanueva.
Awesome. And that has been the episode 24 of the MCU Exchange podcast. Till the next episode, guys. Bye. Keep safe.
Till next time.